regardless of our position, regardless of our condition. Trinbagonians, look on the bright side. One time. Hold your head up. Hold your head up. Life may be rough. I tell you, times may be tough, but we must keep going. I feel the pain. Yes, we keep holding strain, but we must keep fighting. Regardless of how it comes, we just can't surrender. We got to keep working towards a better future. We would never be always down and fighting to stay off the ground. You must remember, all day will come. While we appreciate the little life got to give, regardless what's the hood, we must think positive. Look on the brighter side. Look on the brighter side. Because I see a silver lining behind this gray cloud we're passing. Look on the bright side. Look on the bright side. For the bright side is where we go in. No more negative thoughts. With a heavy load, look how we going down the road, but we must keep going. As though we commit a crime, and we keep serving time, but we must keep fighting. Remember they say that nothing lasts forever. One day is for the slave, one day for the master. So always keep your courage up. Don't allow confidence to drop. One day we'll be right there on top. While we appreciate the little life got to give, regardless what's the hood, really must think positive. Look on the brighter side. Look on the brighter side. Because I see a silver lining behind this gray cloud we're passing. So look on the bright side. Look on the bright side. For the bright side is where Trinity going. I said the journey may be long. Look how we keep falling down, but we must keep going. It keep getting hot, like the pressure won't stop, but we must keep fighting. Everybody in life does have their little setback, but we just can't say that's that. Sit down and relax. Don't care what you go through today. Surrender we must never say. Yeah, there's a will. There is a way. While we appreciate the little life got to give, regardless what's the hood, Trini, you must think positive. Look on the brighter side. Look on the brighter side. Because I see a silver lining behind the gray cloud we're passing. So look on the bright side. Look on the bright side. For the bright side is where we go in, and we love you.
Look on the bright side. Look on the bright side. Look on the brighter side. For the brighter side is where we going. Look on the bright side, regardless of whatever we are going through as Guyana and as Guyanese. We look on the bright side. My man there, the Troy Calise, the late great Black Stallion, um, willing us to look on the bright side. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to all of you. Welcome on a Friday evening to Politics 101. We continue our conversation that we started last night. We're going to have a guest tonight. He hasn't been on for a little while, for a long while, actually. Apostle Nigel London is going to join me in a little while for us to continue that conversation that we started last night. The Venezuelan aggression and the crisis of governance and leadership in Guyana. The crisis of governance and leadership in Guyana. Good evening to all of you and welcome to Politics 101. It's nice to see you all out on a Friday evening. We've got work to do. I want to apologize profusely to you all. I want to apologize profusely to you all for not saying anything last evening. Good evening to all of you. As you notice, my what is story? My eye. I did a minor medical thing with my eyes, and as you notice, it's showing there. And I forgot last night to mention that, and I understand I wasn't reading too much in the comment section, and some of you were concerned. Yes, it was a minor operation, in and out thing, and it has left a little bloodiness in the eye, but I'm fine. I'm fine generally. I toyed with the idea of wearing my shades, but I said, well, if I put on shades, people will say, well, Dr. Hinds don't wear shades. What's going on? So I decided to go without my shades and forgot to mention that my eyes are showing some evidence of recent. It was minor, nothing big. I am fine, and thanks very much for the concern that has been shown about my condition. And I can assure you, my wife or my lady didn't beat me up and bust up my eye. Well, you all can't see bruise up my knee, but bust up my eye. It was a minor medical condition. I'm too old to get beat up in my eye. Welcome to all of you. Again, whether you're joining us from Guyana or whether you're joining us, Karen Black, one of our dear, Karen, good evening to you. One of our trusted supporters. All the bookers are out. J Booker, D Booker, Danet Booker, all the bookers. Welcome to Politics 101. Good evening, Esther. Good evening, Terrence Beaton. Good evening. Welcome to Politics 101. Thanks very much for those of you who gave us feedback on the program last night. I can tell you that it went viral. Really, people were bombarded me today and thanking us for taking the stand we took last night on the program. Welcome to all of you who are joining us from outside of Guyana, meaning physically outside of Guyana, but spiritually and otherwise very much part of Guyana. We are on this journey together. Last night we expressed our condolences to the 5 brothers who perished in that in that accident, the 5 soldiers. And as I referred to them last night as 5 beautiful brothers, And there were brothers who represented the various ethnic groups in Guyana. You know, Indo-Guyanese, African Guyanese, and others. As I said, 5 beautiful brothers. Uh, I've met uh, uh, Officer, well, not officer, I think he's Colonel Beaton, and Charles in passing. Um, and so I have seen them before, and beautiful brothers who made the ultimate sacrifice for their country. And I was making the point last night, and I continue to make that point, that when people talk about those who contribute to Guyana, they tend to denigrate those of us who are not making money, who are not into business, as though the only way you can contribute to your country is in making money. Well, now in this hour as we face down a neighbor who is trying to bully us, then we come to realize the value of our men and women in uniform. Our men and women in uniform. Yes, they're not making money, but they're contributing to our country. They're defending our territorial integrity, defending those who are making money. And I'm telling you, I'm thoroughly against this philosophy that the PPP has introduced to our country, that the only use that we have in life is to be hustlers to make $1. Let me make it very clear, as someone who came out of poor circumstances and who still consider myself poor. I may have a reasonably good salary, but you know what the story is. You what you earn, you spend, and I'm by no means a rich man. I would like more money, more riches, and so on. But I want to make the point here that life does not begin with making money and end with making money. That we first of all must appreciate what God and the ancestors have given us in terms of life. And we must turn our surroundings, our community, our society, our country, our region into a place that people can live as human beings. And in the process, we have to feed, we have to house, we have to clothe ourselves. And so material things become very important. I'm not telling people here not to go after material things. Material things are extremely important. Wealth and resources are very important. And so I want to make the point very clear. But I want to make the point that this philosophy, this ideology that the PPP is imposing upon us, that all we have to do is to hustle. And what the PNC did do for you, what the coalition did do for you, not what the coalition did for this country. Any critique of the coalition, any critique of the PNC, any critique of the PPP must not be about how they turn us into hustlers. It must be about how they manage this country. And the PPP is trying to turn us into hustlers. Their ideology is an ideology that says that Guyana is a place to make money, is a place of transaction. And I am arguing that we have to see Guyana as a place, a civilization, a place for which we have sacrificed, a place that we were brought mostly against our will, and that we have turned this into a livable space. We have turned Guyana into a livable space. Many of us, our ancestors, blood and bones and sweat, are churned up in the waters and the sands and the earth of Guyana. And so when we talk about a Guyana worth defending, We are not talking about a marketplace that is worth defending. We are talking about a civilization. And I'm talking about civilization not here in the colonial sense, because I know the colonialists came and they felt that they had to civilize people. I am not talking about that kind of civilization. I'm talking about a civilization from a Guyanese and Caribbean standpoint, where we were brought into this wild coast. And by the sweat and the blood of our ancestors, we transformed the wild coast where they brought people, sold people, bought people, and killed people in the pursuit of wealth. We turned that wild coast, that wild slave marketplace, into a habitable space. We villagized the Guyana. We talk about the village movement. It was more than a movement. In the process of creating villages, what we were creating is a civilized space where our people could live as human beings, not as slaves, not as colonized people, not as indentured people. And it is that place that Venezuela is threatening. They're threatening our birthright, where our navel string in proper English and our navel string in proper Creolese berry. So those five brothers, those five beautiful brothers, representing the mosaic of our country, the first five martyrs of this stage of our evolution as a country, as a civilized space. They died in war because Venezuela has declared war on us. And those brothers died in war. Bullets have not been fired across our borders. But what the Venezuelans have done is they fired some serious political bullets, violating our right to live in peace in a space that we suffered on and suffered for. And so, as I said last night, in this hour, Guyana is not just a marketplace where you hustle, where you drink some soup, and you hustle a couple of dollars. It's a place that we call our civilized space. Good evening to you all and welcome to Politics 101. As I said, Brother Nigel London is here tonight. He hasn't been on in a long time, and that is through no fault of his, my fault, you know. Sometimes things get a little bit rough, and you all know how I make my living, and sometimes you spend more time trying to hold that together. Thank God the semester's come to an end. Today is the deadline for turning in grades, so you all can imagine the work that we are doing. You know, I'm teaching a very large class of 150 students, one large class. And guess what? It's a class on Bob Marley. We'll be proud of that. Who would believe that in the heartland of the United States in 2023, that our young people would be using the lyrics of our Bob Marley as text. We have come a long way. Even if the world has not taken us along with them, we have come a long way as a people, as a Guyanese people, as a Caribbean people. I'm saying over and over again, let's not fool ourselves. Guyana is a difficult place. It's a difficult place. The manner in which we were brought, our peoples were brought to Guyana, makes it a difficult place to manage, to govern. And no government, whether it's the PPP government, the PNC government, the coalition government, no government in Guyana is objectively equipped to manage the war situation that we are in. None of them by themselves is equipped objectively. Objectively. When you're fighting a war against the aggression that coming from Venezuela, you need a national response. And the fact of the matter, we don't have national governments. And we don't have national communities that are intentionally built by our governments. None of our governments. Some may have done a little better than others. But we are forced more than other places to build a national community. And the PPP is woeful. In all of this, the PPP is concerned about its power. In all of this, I was reminded by one of my comrades today that the PPP would be more concerned, oh, they fought for democracy and elections were rigged against them. And so they have a right to hold on to power. It is their right, their birthright. And even in a time of war, when we should be sharing the burdens of government, when we should be reaching for a national response, the PPP is holding on to a party response. As I said last night, and I'm saying it again, Venezuela does not have our ethnic burden. The army is fully behind the government of Venezuela. I don't know that our army is fully behind our government, because our government does some bad things to the community from which our army people are recruited. Our government has done some dirty and wicked things to the community from which we have to recruit our soldiers. And now it is that government that has to ask these soldiers to go and fight. And to go and fight without armory. To go and fight against a major military power. Our government never sought to equip our army, because they've always socialized their supporters to believe the army is an ethnic enemy. Now, let me make it very clear. Any army, any police, any military in any country, as a coercive arm of the state, always would be anti-people, in the sense that they're there as a form, a medium of force against people. So all people are suspicious of the coercive arm of the state, the military and the police. God knows. I mean, no group in Guyana got more grows against the police, for example, than black people. And black people the police more than other ethnic groups. So as a coercive arm of the state, yes, all of us have our grouses with the police and the army. But the PPP has, over the decades, socialized its supporters to see the army not just as a coercive arm of the state, but to see it as an ethnic arm of the state, fighting and beating back East Indians. That is why our East Indian brothers and sisters don't want to join the army. When you go to them, when the PPP try to go to them and ask them to, they say, no, there's black man walk. Because part of what the PPP has done, it has socialized its supporters to see the defense of the country as low life work, and black man work. And now it is that army that we have to call upon to fight for us. No wonder we are hearing of murmurs in the ranks of the army. Why should they fight for Guyana? They have not been given the resources to fight because the government is suspicious of giving them the resources to fight. I'm talking the truth. And some people may say, well, David Hinds, is your truth. Well, so be it. Our truth comes out of our experiences. We are at a serious time. And I hold the philosophy that it is not because we are at war that we should forget the war that is being waged as we speak on our society by our government. And before I bring my brother in, I'm putting this thesis out there again, and I'll ask my brother to start off there. We are saying that Maduro is using the Venezuela-Guyanese border issue to cement himself internally, to mobilize support for him and his party and his government. But the story doesn't end there. The Guyana government is doing the same thing. The Guyana government is reluctant, willfully reluctant, to cede even 1 ounce of political space to the opposition, as it should do, to fight against. Why does it fear the opposition? Because it believes power belongs to that government and that party alone. And so for them, defense of our country has to take second seat, back seat, to protection of what they see as their political power. That is the crisis we are facing, a crisis of governance. Good evening. Welcome to Politics 101. Apostle London is ready for us as soon as they've gotten him mic'd up and all of that stuff. We're going to get him in. Our job is twofold. At least I see it that way. It is to help to mobilize our people and help to mobilize our friends to our cause. But in the process of doing so, we must not lose sight of the fact that we have to continue to mobilize against a government that doesn't care about Guyana. You look at the president, Irfan Ali, you look at him on CNN, and there he was on CNN. And look at how he framed the problem. He's framing Guyana problem as an international issue for international people to solve. He didn't talk about Guyana, about mobilizing Guyana. Not a word about that. Not a word about mobilizing Guyana. Partly because the government cannot mobilize Guyana nationally. It doesn't have the will to mobilize Guyana nationally. It doesn't have the skills to mobilize Guyana nationally. And so the brother goes on CNN and frames our problem as other people's problem to solve and not our problem. The other morning, as I said, I was on a Caribbean program and the announcers asked, how are Guyanese doing? How are they being mobilized? And I had to tell the truth. that there is some mobilization, but there's not a national mobilization. There's not a national mobilization. When Hitler was hammering Britain, the war dog Winston Churchill called in Clement Attlee of the Labour Party and said, let us have a national government because this needs a national response. I hate to mention the most recent instance, and I'm not going to call it by name because of what that government is doing there in the Palestine. Sisters and brothers, we are in serious time. Let's bring in my brother. Let's bring in my brother. Brother London, good evening to you. Are you with us? I know you're having some difficulty there. You're hearing me? Brother London, you seem to be having some technical difficulties there. I hope. Are you hearing me, Brother London? You have to unmute yourself if you're muted. Yes, Brother London is having some challenges there, and I hope he's able to sort them out. I hope he's able to sort out those challenges and be ready for us. But as I am saying, this problem must begin with us, with Guyana. Yes, Brother London, are you? I'm hearing you now.
Excellent. I can also hear you. And
thank you very much. Thank you very much, and my apologies for absenting you for such a long time. But we are here, and I had the opportunity to look at your live yesterday, and I was quite moved by it because you continue to do your work, you continue to do our work, and I want to start. I want to start with a pointed question. Do you believe that in this time of crisis, as we face the aggression of our bully neighbor, not mad Maduro, because Maduro is not mad.
No.
He's very sane. As we face Mr. Maduro and the might of his government, are we getting the kind of government and governance that we need in this time?
Thank you, Dr. Hinds, for having me here, and to your viewers, I must say that I'm humbled to be back here with you all. They say absence makes the heart grow fonder, so probably it was meant to be. But in reference to your question, at this very critical juncture in our nation's history, Guyana is being governed in a manner that doesn't lend itself to any sensible response to anything, internally and worse, externally. We are incapable of dealing with this situation because of the nature of governance in our country. If we have got a situation in which the two political giants, as they call, I do not see them as giants, I see them as dwarfs in reference to how they conduct themselves, in relation to national politics. If we cannot sensibly sit to say that internally we have to have proper structures, we have to have proper mannerisms and modes of operation, then we cannot expect anything to be transformed into healthy governance in the midst of a crisis of this nature. The PPP, more than any other group in this country, is not given to sharing what they consider to be power with anyone, because their general nature under the Jagdeo-led PPP is to be dominant, it is to be dictatorial, and more than anything else, it is to be insensitive to national issues. And I'm not going to expect that we'd have anything considered to be good governance at this time. What we would have is an exposure or a magnification, a greater exhibition of the poor manner in which our nation is being governed. And that is what we're being faced with here in Guyana. We're now seeing, because of a crisis across the border, you're seeing a magnification, a greater display of how poorly our country is being governed. We have no voice in reference to the power given to the opposition, and the opposition has got power in Guyana constitutionally. It is not that the PP has to give Orbie Norton, APNU AFC and AFC, APNU AFC power. Irfan Ali or Bara Jagger does not give power to the opposition. The constitution gives way to the opposition. And in the face of a national crisis, I would like to expect that the PPP would have at least considered recognizing the constitutional power that the opposition has. The PPP cannot decide that they will, for example, if they consider, oh, we're going to give Venezuela, as Jack David suggested a while ago, some passage to the sea. No, it would involve the opposition. It would involve every Guyanese who would have to therefore vote in a referendum to change the structure or the geographic structure, which we call a map of this country. And so our country is in dire straits. And I would like to suggest that every Guyanese should pay careful attention to that which has now befallen us. When I would have spoken at length, or what they would say ad nauseum, until I'm tired in our Guyanese vernacular, Creolese, that good governance is what we need in this country. We're now seeing why I said what I would have said. We need it. We must have it.
We need it. And I'm not trying to classify myself. I just want to apologize to those of you. As you notice, in one of my eyes, I did a minor operation in one of my eyes, and
the glare.
Yes, and the eyes a little discolored. And last night I came on and didn't say anything, and I didn't want to put on the glasses because that would have distracted you more, as you notice. And so many of you were concerned. But I just want to report. Thank you all. It was a minor operation. These days, these things are in and out, and it will take a few days for the eye to clear up. So I am in good shape. I just wanted to say that. And thank you very much, Pastor. Thank you very much for Apostle for pointing that out. That what the Venezuelan crisis has not brought on the crisis of leadership. It has exposed the crisis of leadership. And I live by the definition of democracy posited by Sir Arthur Lewis, our Caribbean St. Lucian Nobel Prize winner in economics, who said that democracy must mean that all those who are affected by a decision should be at the table to make that decision.
Correct.
And it's a definition of democracy that I use in my political work, in my scholarly work, as it relates to Guyana and the Caribbean. And what more opportune time to put that definition of democracy, or what more opportune time that definition of democracy is being exposed in a place like Guyana. Whatever decision that is made in relation to Venezuela would involve and consume all of us. All of us. And if ever there was a time for all of us to be at the table to make a decision, it is now. Pastor London, Apostle London, I think indictment has to be indictment. We found oil. The largest deposit of oil that has been found anywhere in the world right now. We have had this Venezuelan aggression for the last 6 decades. I was pointing out on a program I was earlier on today, that my entire life has been spent with Venezuelan aggression. I was born in 1959. Venezuela renewed their aggression to Guyana in 1962. So all of my life I spent with Venezuela doing this. a clear and present danger. Here is it that we have found this large deposit of oil in an area that Venezuela is claiming. Any damn fool would think that the first thing you would do, or you would begin to think about when you find this big oil, is that, oh Lord, Venezuela is now going to come on our case. So we got to start to think strategically. We have to start to put contingency things in place. Whether it is buying more weapons for our army, whether it is setting up institutions to anticipate that Venezuela is going to come. Where is the standing committee in the National Assembly on Venezuela? Where is the select committee in the National Assembly? Where is the education curriculum? Where is the education the education pitch to our children to teach them about Venezuela and Guyana and Venezuela's claim? Mr. Maduro doesn't have those problems because they teach Venezuelans about Venezuelan claim to Guyana's land. He doesn't have that problem. He doesn't have the military problem because his military is prepared. Have we prepared our military? Have we prepared our community, our country, our people? No. Our government got oil money and busy sharing it out to their friends, using it to beat half of the community rather than thinking strategically. Apostle London, please comment on that.
Quite an extensive and powerful train of thought, because what Guyana is doing, and I trust you can hear me well, what Guyana is doing at this time, or what Irfan Ali, led by Jagdeo, is doing to Guyana, is causing us to be weakened on a daily basis. Let me remind Guyanese that I was born, I was alive, and I was in school when in 1982 there was the crisis that arose, and that's where we got the not a blade of grass hit from. And when I was in school then, I remember as a boy that I felt as if I could take on Venezuela as a grade 6 student or grade 5 student. I was ready. I remember that the May Day parades where we had to march and we did national service when I was in primary school. I also recall, because I lived in Berbice for 8 years in Amsterdam, I recall persons who were opposed to Forbes Burnham saying that Burnham wants to punish Guyanese and Burnham is a dictator and Burnham is doing all these things. But the same people now, some of them are saying that we need Guyanese to be trained, we need the national service, we need the people's militia. I see them advertising now for you to join the militia to help to defend Guyana. Why would I join it now when there's a crisis? And as you spoke to the fact that, and I was speaking to my experience as a child, to highlight that all of Guyana, as far as I'm aware, including school children, felt as though we were empowered to do something. Now, we hadn't the sense to know that we can't fight people with just our little hands and cutlasses, but we felt as if Guyana belonged to us indeed. Coming forward to today, I recognize that when, or before first oil, as they call it, was ever pumped, Venezuela sought to intercept one of the drills, a drill ship. Now, which fool would not recognize that if these people attempted to stop the ship from drilling, what would they do when they begin to extract the oil? Do we think that Venezuela is going to, Maduro will just sit back and say, well, take as much as you want? And even further than that, we must also recognize the tone that this Maduro administration feels or has towards Jagdeo's administration. This is not Irfan Ali's administration. And I would say that deliberately. The tone is that he recognizes that Jagdeo is pandering or playing into the hand of the US. And that is what has given Maduro great cause to act the way he does. Because if ExxonMobil is allowed to take as much as they can take and to boast about how much they are taking, remember that this deposit or these deposits that they're finding in reference to oil is light crude, and you have gas attached to it, which makes us excessively wealthy by potential and by population per head. Maduro recognized then that if our people as Guyanese, because of who he has here feeding information as well, if our people can be treated the way we do, or we are, by our own administration, and Exxon can enjoy what they're enjoying, and while being protected by the administration, it is a perfect time for him to act, because we have no national and political will to deal with this situation which should be dealt with. I would like to think that we should be very, very protective of our history, protective of our economy, and protective of the legacy of those who understood that Guyana's borders are stretching into some point sacred to Guyana. And we can't treat it lightly. We cannot take it casually, because if all is found in an area that can be considered very close to Venezuela's borders, they are our neighbors, then we have to consider the fact that one threat from Venezuela with the drill ship was one threat too many. Therefore, we should position ourselves not just at the border, but within the confines of our country, to tell every Guyanese that this oil is our oil, and you would therefore enjoy the benefits of this oil. So if Venezuela tries to threaten it, then we all feel as if it's a part of what we're going to lose. I would hasten to say to you, my brother, that many Guyanese, the vast majority of Guyanese, do not feel as if this oil or the loss of it can affect us economically as a person, because we do not enjoy it as individuals. So if we're not enjoying it as individuals, why should we try to protect it as a whole?
Yes.
We must first feel a sense of ownership of anything before we seek to protect it. I'm certain that if someone tries to enter your car tonight and you see them doing so, you say, stop, that's my car. Why are you touching my car? Why are you trying to break the lock into my car? Why are you doing that? And you would call the police to say, someone has tried to break into my car. I cannot say as a Guyanese tonight that this is my oil, because Jack Dio has never made me feel that way. What they're doing now with it, it seems as if it's Ashley Singh's, Barbara Jagdio's, Irfan Ali's, and all of their friends. That's how they make me feel. So the preparation to protect us or protect the interests of Guyanese isn't there because they don't have Guyanese interests at heart. That's the bottom line. They do not have our economic interests at heart.
Apostle London, and I want to thank you for coming on tonight. I want to thank you in the audience, and I'm telling you all, this is serious. We're not playing around. They're not playing around. As you all would have read in the news or seen in the news, Mr. Maduro has issued arrest warrants for people who oppose this referendum, many of whom live outside of Venezuela. Any resemblance to our Guyana? Any resemblance to our Guyana? Apostle London, please comment on that.
Maduro, thank you for saying that. Maduro is a direct reflection, either way, of this regime called the PPP. So what they want to do to Rickford Burke, to you, probably, to Norman Brown, to those who they say are opponents of theirs, Maduro is willing to do to his own people. So what they're dealing with now is a bigger or a larger picture or image of who they really are. And that's what they cannot handle. Maduro does not intend to play with these people because he knows how weakened our national consciousness is. And we have to highlight that as Guyanese people. The PPP can never present to you the genuineness of who you are as a Guyanese, because they don't care about that. Who we are as Guyanese is not about what the PPP presents or what a weakened opposition presents. It's what we have been historically. As much as you want to hate Fox Burnham, go back to the 1980s and how he dealt with the situation. He made every Guyanese feel as if, although we may not have military power, we have psychological power. Yeah. We are not going to crumble. Hence, when Not a Blade of Grass came into play, as a child, I felt convicted that they would not touch a blade of grass in my yard. I was very literal. Nobody could come and take this. No Venezuelan can come and take this grass from me because this is mine. Fortunately, we had jamun trees around the neighborhood in New Amsterdam. So I felt, you can't get jamun and you can't get this blue sake from my guava tree. It felt as if Guyana belonged to me. Today, what we have is a regime that's led by people who Maduro understands they are his image, but they are a weakened form of who he is. And that's how we deal with them.
They're weakened form. Good evening to you all. If you're just joining us, yes, it's Politics 101. Yes, it is Apostle London who is on rapping with us here tonight on the Venezuelan issue, but on some really serious consequences of the Venezuelan move. Good evening to you all. I want to thank Brother Norman Brown for rebroadcasting some of our shows. Thank you, Norman, for doing so and helping to spread the word. Thank you all for continuing to continue to come through and come through. Even as the word rolls out of my mouth. Those of you who are deep into African spirituality will know that part of our comforting is come through. In the old days, Pastor London, you know that term, come through? You know, the comfort service, they say you're going to come through in the days of Little Jones, and so on. But the point I am making is, as my brother said, Guyana is a place that you feel a spiritual attachment to. And it is a time like these that we discover it, that, that our governments are horrible. With some exceptions, here and there, they've done some positive things. And I do share the view that in the 1980s, I mean, I was in the trenches fighting against Burnham's authoritarianism, but I remember 1982. I remember Herrera campaigns because he was then the president of Venezuela.
Yes.
And 1982 represented the end of the 12-year truce that Prime Minister Eric Williams had worked out. And the Venezuelans were making their move. And Burnham made his move. And we felt in Guyana that we could move mountains.
Correct.
And beat bad Venezuela. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what you are talking about. We know we don't have tanks. We know we barely have a standing army. We know that. But I always make the reference to Fidel Castro, whether you like him or not. 90 miles off the shore of the greatest military power in the world.
Correct.
And whenever they open their mouth and threaten him, he would put 2 million people in that square. And he would stand there and speak to them for 2-3 hours. And I grew up looking at that and said, you can win wars by mobilizing your people, even when you don't have military hardware. And that is what this government is failing our country. Pastor Apostle London, we have no choice. As you said, the opposition has power.
Yes, constitutionally so.
Constitutionally so. But it also has the power of 200,000 people and their families who voted for them. And if this government doesn't want to give leadership in mobilizing our people, then we have to show leadership and to mobilize our people. We have to do the things. We have to call upon. We have to call upon the best in us. Now, we understand the unevenness. Because of history, some of us have been here longer. And we have much more of a spiritual attachment to the land, to the sea, to the air that we breathe. Because, as Walter Rodney said, it is our ancestors who dug those earth with shovels and created those canals. So our very hand, our very labor power is in there. Yes, some of our other brothers and sisters came later on, and they are not as deeply attached to the land as those who came before, but they also have a responsibility to that land. And if the PPP does not want to socialize its supporters to understand that they also have a responsibility to Guyana because they have contributed to Guyana and they have benefited from Guyana. If the PPP doesn't want to say that to its supporters, we have to find a way to speak, either by example or by reason and reason, to our brothers and sisters, and to say the PPP's view of Guyana is not the only view of Guyana. That just as Rex Netterford used to say, just as the African became West Indian, the East Indian must become West Indian. And just as the African became Guyanese, the East Indian must understand that they also have that same kind of spiritual responsibility. And we know that the PPP is trying to tell you that you don't have that responsibility. We heard our friend Ravi Dev telling Indians from India, come to Guyana and make money.
Make money.
He didn't say come to Guyana and help to defend Guyana. So it is that kind of propaganda that they're feeding our East Indian brothers and sisters, that this place is a place where you hustle and you make money. And it is coming back to bite us now. And I think this is a time that we have to hold hands across the ethnic divide and speak to one another and say our nationhood, however fragile, is all we have. All we have. My brother, you care to comment on that ethnic delicacy, delicateness, sorry, as we try to maneuver our way in this time, because nobody's going to talk about it in the way that we are going to talk about it. They're going to try to paper it over and all of that. But we have a crisis, and we have a problem, not because we created it, but because history has dealt us that hand. But it doesn't mean that we have to become prisoners of that history. There's a way we can break out of it. Please comment on that for me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hinds. And before I do that, I must highlight what you spoke to in reference to the number of people who would have voted for the coalition.
Yeah.
I always say people, it's known, and I said for a reason, I do not support any political party, but I support good governance. And we have got 65 members in the House of Assembly, Dr. Hinds. 65. Can you tell me, since Maduro's referendum, whether you saw 65 people standing together, even for a photo op? Have you seen 65 people standing together to say, we are the National Assembly, we are parliamentarians, we are legislators, and we stand here united in defense of Guyana's sovereignty? Have you seen? I haven't seen it. I've been very busy. Have you seen that?
No,
okay.
No.
So in the face of a national crisis, I have not seen Finale and Aubrey Norton sitting at a press conference for 2 days saying that we are here in this together. We are going to drop all political ills and differences, and we're going to stand to defend the integrity of our nation. We will call a truce across the board. I haven't seen Jack Deal doing that. I haven't seen Granger doing that as the head of the list either. So we've got a definite expression in our country, unfortunately so, that those who are leading us, as they say politically, are unwilling or unable to express to us as Guyanese this sense of unity. Now, in reference to we have to go back to 1982. Burnham, who's African Guyanese, was in charge of the country. The soldiers who were predominantly African Guyanese didn't see an ethnic opponent.
Yes, we know.
The PPP has caused, in reference to what I've seen, so many high-ranking and highly ranked military officers to be either stepped, pushed aside, overridden, undermined, disrespected. Look about it to the last brigadier. Promote him and then say, okay, then that's it, you're gone. Last day. Oh, it is disrespectful. This group of people, this last batch of PPP leaders here are the worst that we've ever seen. They are the most disrespectful people. And then when you have a crisis of this nature, their supporters in many instances, because of their ethnically charged dishonor for African descendants, they are willing to say, that they don't have a care in the world for hungry bellies, because Jagdeo would have called one of our parliamentarians in Cathy Hughes a hungry belly,
Low life.
a low life, as a matter of fact. If he could call a parliamentarian who sits across the floor from him a low life, what
and a middle class African,
a middle class woman,
middle class, because she's not a ground dove, as we would say in the village. He calling her eagle.
Fields and Scobie, the owner of part
people gonna call it eagle, your life is gonna call ground dove.
Thank you. So when you have that happening in your country, and look at when he did it, in the midst of Maduro's aggression, in the midst of Venezuela's aggression, Jagdeo refers to a fellow parliamentarian as a lowlife. And the point I'm making here is, if he could call her a lowlife, what does he see the sergeant in the army as? What does he see a basic corporal as? What do you see a private as? What do you see them as? Now let's be serious here. If you could call one who has got so many years of service, has part owner of a law from her husband, all of that you could talk about. Whatever bells and whistles you want to give to Cathy Hughes. If he could call her a lowlife, what would he call the janitor at Campayangano? So we have to see here what is at play ethnically. And if people look up to him, his supporters, to say, this man, whatever he says, we accept, then how would they view our soldiers? What would you see them as? And so the ethnic issue we face in Guyana has now spilled over into us being unable to unite as a people. As a people. And I must speak to this further, Dr. Hinds. In Essequibo, where the overwhelming deposit of our economy is, in reference to our potential to earn, gold, diamond, manganese, bauxite, timber, uranium. People don't know that. I did environmental science, I know what's there. We have got radioactive materials in this country that could power this whole nation for decades.
The Iranians wanted our uranium, and the Americans
try to fight and stop it, correct. And then you have it. So when we've got this situation at play here, my question to Jagdeo and to Irfan and all y'all is, who owns most of the gold blocks and claims? Who owns most of the timber? Who has been given the oil blocks? Who? Me? You? So why can't a Guyanese say of African descent, I don't own it, and I don't have any access to all this thing you talk about? Because when some people try to get a little claim here or try to do something, it's always a fight. And the faces in GDMC has begun to change. People don't know that yet. Geology and Mines Commission, responsible for negotiating and having oversight of our diamond, gold, mineral, and all that, the faces are beginning to change. And yet again, people are strategically removed so the other faces can come in and do what they want to do. So why should the average African descendant in this country fight for Essequibo? Tell me a reason. Yeah. Give me a reason, and we'll fight for it. Don't tell me because we live in Essequibo. Yeah. Living somewhere but not being able to benefit from it economically is not living there.
Yeah. Thank you very much, my brother. And I want us to be clear about what we are saying here. We are asking the difficult questions. A few months ago, when Takuma Ogunse stood in Buxton and raised this very issue, what they did, they shackled him like a common slave.
Yes.
Because he was raising the very issue that is haunting us now.
Correct.
The ethnic composition of our army in a multi-ethnic society where the government is dominated by the representatives of one ethnic group, and that they are raining blows on the other ethnic group, that the composition of the army some of you all will say, Ogunse is a Obia man, he's a seafar man. No, he was being realistic. And we have now come face to face with our ethnic reality. And that is that in an ethnically difficult country like Guyana, facing war against a country that is ideologically united. Venezuela is ideologically united.
Correct.
The army is on board with the government. I'm sure there are people in the army who don't like the government. But on Venezuela, they're on board. And we face our internal challenges, and a government that is prepared to continue behaving as though this place belongs to them, and by extension to those who support them. And I think that is the great battle that we also have. We are fighting two battles, two wars. The war against Venezuela's aggression, and war against the aggression by our own government, aggression against us, but the aggression of exposing us to aggression, because that's what they've done.
Yeah.
Expose us to Venezuelan aggression. Not what the Venezuelans are doing. Not what the Venezuelans are doing. You oppose their referendum, they lock you up. In Guyana, you just whisper anything against this government, what they're calling for, charge GHK Lal for treason.
Yes.
Know the similarities of the behavior. And so we are up against it. My brother, leave our people with some hope, because we need a lot of that. We need a lot of that.
Thank you. And to all Guyanese, I would certainly leave you with the hope of recognizing who you are. Strength does not come necessarily from those who lead you when they're weak. It comes from what you believe in yourself, in reference to who are you? Who am I as a person? And I would always say, Dr. Hinds, and maybe the preacher in me will come out tonight, wicked people worry, righteous people do not. As long as my heart is clean and my hands are clean, I don't worry about anything. Even Venezuelans' aggression wouldn't bother me, because I know who I am. And I also am well aware of who Maduro is after. When Maduro can embarrass Guyana, as far as I'm concerned, or the PPP, to say that their leaders are enjoying the benefit of this oil and splurging it with their friends and causing the US to have a field day, he's telling the truth. And if Maduro could be so accurate in identifying who is really behind all of this, then it tells me what his focus is on. It's not Essequibo. It's on those who are causing Essequibo to be raped by neo-colonialists, which are those, for those who don't know, the new form of colonialism, where the US wants to own Guyana but not be here. Guyanese brothers and sisters, be strengthened by who you genuinely are. Most Guyanese are genuinely strong people, but they are weakened when they look to weak leadership for direction. Look within and recognize that our forefathers, both the Indian descendants and the African descendants, Hebrews I call some of them, they both recognized who their enemy was. And they both said that Massa is not good enough to rule us. We must recognize here today who our enemy is. And I would say something, please do not blame this on Dr. Hinds, put this all on my shoulder. Maduro is not my problem. The PPP's leadership is. Because if they handle this right, we wouldn't be where we are today. And that's a fact.
They can blame me for that, my brother, because I stand squarely with you on that. Maduro is a consequence,
exactly,
of the problem that we face in Guyana. Is a consequence of what we face in Guyana. The threat of Maduro has been there going back to 1962. It's not new. Maduro is just continuing what was started by Betancourt and others way back in the 1960s. We supported Maduro from an anti-imperialist standpoint.
Correct.
When the Venezuelans were bringing down the neck of Chavez and Maduro.
Correct.
We supported them.
Correct.
And we want to say that because we were principled people.
Correct.
We didn't ask whether Venezuela, was claiming our land. We felt that America was putting on their boots on them. And as people, anti-colonial people, past-colonial people, we had to stand with them. And we did.
Yes.
We did. So let us not pretend that somewhere or the other, Maduro was always this madman that we have painted him to be. He's a wicked chap because he's seeking to take advantage of a weak neighbor.
Correct.
Yes, but he recognizes that he has good company. Show me your company.
And I'll tell you who you are.
My brother, you are such a wonderful brother. And as
My pleasure.
I said, it's always my pleasure to discourse with you. Thank you very
Pleasure.
much.
Thank you
Thank
to your
you very
viewers. Greetings.
much. And to you, my people, our people, we are in this together. And we are not giving up. We're not giving up. Not a blade of grass, not one jamoon, not one chorus. And I always say that that song takes us through the whole gamut of our experience. Chorus is Indian. Not one chorus, not a blade of grass, not one whitey, not one jamoon, not a drop of water from the Pomeroon, the Amerindians. That must become more than just a song. In the absence of wise leadership, we have to create our own wisdom and our own leadership. The opposition is not where we want it to be. I'm talking about the official opposition. But we have to help them to get where they ought to be. And that is they have to recognize that the government is selling Guyana down the drain. And the people are looking to us on the other side of the aisle for answers. I've gotten so many calls from relatives and families of the military saying, Dr. Hinds, please speak for us. Why must our young men, why must our fathers and brothers go and give their life for a Guyana that doesn't give a damn about us? I'm not just expressing my own feeling. I'm expressing the feelings of people who have taken the risk of talking to people like me and asking me to speak for them. So it is not about people like myself and Pastor London trying to bring race into it. It is what our people are telling us. And we've got to walk our walk and talk our talk. Thank you all very much. And we're going to stay in line over the weekend because situation is moving very, very fast, and we may have to go live on the weekend, although we normally don't. But stay tuned, and we're going to keep staying on top of this. A lot of journalists are going into Guyana. I got a call from the BBC today saying they want to talk to me because they're going into Guyana next week and they want to get some background. I've been doing this all through this week, all through last week, as foreign journalists from Latin America, from Brazil, all over, trying to go into the country. They're finding people like myself as resource people, calling us to ask to explain things to them, to give them a sense of what our Guyana. We have our uses, and we'll continue to do that. I have always been doing work in the Caribbean media, and I continue to do that. I continue to be asked by the media in the Caribbean to help to explain what is happening in our country. I thank God. I thank the people of Guyana. I thank the people of my village for preparing me so that I can be of service to our people in a time like this. When I was growing up as a little boy at Bottom Station in Buxton, if anybody told me that the BBC, which I used to listen to as a child, would be calling you to ask you to help them to understand what's happening in the country, I would tell you, go to hell. But because of education, because of socialization, because of people like UC Kwayan and others who help to mold people like myself, we are of service to our country today. Where the government is failing, we are standing up and we are doing our work. Continue, please, to support us. Continue, please, to stand with us. Every time you come out on these programs, the 1,300 of you who are live here tonight, you're saying to people that what David Hinds and Nigel London are saying, we may not agree with every word that falls from their mouth, but we agree with their witnessing for Guyana. Without you, we do not exist as speakers and spokespersons for what we think you want us to say. And so I put a lot of store on every one of you, each of you who take the time to come on to this program. Even those who come on to make trouble, I am reliably informed that they go away learning something. We are teachers. We have always been teachers, and we'll continue to do so. But we have to use our teaching today to mobilize our people on the Essequibo coast, our people in the Essequibo Islands, our people in Region 9 and Region 8, our people in Region 7, who are there in that territory, not disputed territory, but territory that is under the gun of Venezuela. We stand with you. We stand with you. We stand with you. And so I continue to thank you all for making what we do possible. Love is something that says a lot about who we are as human beings. It's Friday night. I know when you leave here, you go to Sherrod in the circle and then straight up with Mark Benshop. And I trust that you take time out tonight to have a little relaxation, because in the coming days and the coming weeks, we'll have to do battle. Christmas is coming, but this is going to be a Christmas that we are going to be spending defending our dignity and territorial integrity, because without the land that made us possible, we are nothing. We are nothing. Bad governance will come and bad governance will go. But the people of Guyana remain, all of our people. And as I said, my condolences to the families of those 5 brothers who gave their life for us. And I call all of them brothers. They're not only Africans, they're Indians. Dr. Vincent Adams could not be on tonight because one of the fallen soldiers, Mr. Charles, is a relative of his, and he's in mourning. We all are in mourning. But as our brother Claude McCasey, let us not die. Let us fight back. Even as we're dying with our backs to the wall, dying, but fighting back. With our backs to the wall, dying, but fighting back. I love you all. And like I said, it's not my lady or my wife beat up my eye. So you all ladies don't spread propaganda. I love you all. See you all next week. Well, might be over the weekend. But for now, have a working and a vigilant weekend.